I just feel like doing these from now on for a little while, because I've been just doing a lot of studying, a lot of reading about the markets. And someone told me that once you learn, you'll stop talking, and it's so true. Now that you actually know what the hell you're talking about, it's hard to just sit down and spew it out. I want to talk today about getting over old trades, getting over big losses that still linger in the back of your mind. And those of you guys who have watched my show over the last couple of years, you may know about my ROKU trade. In my ROKU trade, going back to 2017, ROKU had beat earnings and at the time extremely low float. I shorted the stock, and over the course of 2 days then lost over $7,500, $7,583 to be exact, like 17 cents. It lingered in my mind for another year. For the entirety of that year, it bothered me. And a part of me still gets bothered by it, but I'm learning now to put that trade to rest. Because what I noticed in hindsight is that when we take a losing trade, we close out of the trade, and that negative self-talk that comes into our mind, a lot of times it doesn't necessarily have to do with the trade that we just lost on. It's that big old trade that you never forgiven yourself for, and that you consistently, constantly, when you take a losing trade, beat yourself on about. I had to forgive myself for taking a position that was way too large, not listening to the market, right? Because if I was listening to what the market was telling me about ROKU, about what people were thinking about cutting the cord, about the fact that the stock was low float, about the fact that many television companies had been laying off people, like ESPN had been laying off staff and losing distribution as people move to more digital ways of enjoying their entertainment. If I was listening, I would not have taken that trade, but I was not listening to the market. And in fact, I was so deaf that I ended up making a video, and you can go back on my page and look up this ROKU video. I made a video because that's how desperate I was. I made a video literally trying to convince myself that ROKU was going to come down. That this explosion of, let me get the sun out of, it's worse this way, but the explosion of volume that it came into the trade after the announcement that they had beaten earnings would eventually subside, and that my short trade would eventually win. And it never happened. The amount of volume in association with the fact that the stock was already low float, and the fact that my trade really wasn't positioned for me to be successful because it was only 2 weeks and it was out of the money. I have forgiven myself for that trade. I have forgiven myself for what cost me almost another 4 to 6 months of trying to get that money back in multiple different ways, and I don't let it beat me up anymore. So my message to you is, if you've got a trade out there that you still think about, if you got a trade out there that still affects you, forgive yourself for that trade. Understand that where you are now mentally is a much better place. You know more, and that losing is part of the game, and that you will never position yourself because now you've got rules. Now you listen to the market. You listen to how news affects the trading that you're doing, that you'll never put yourself in a position like that again. You know? Those big losses have to be forgiven. You've got to forgive yourself. You've got to forgive yourself. You know? You've got to forgive yourself. It's your boy Sal, I'm out.